Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this webinar organized by Uthema with the support of the delegation of the European Union to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. My name is Uthema and I will be moderating this session. Let me start by a short introduction to Uthema. Uthema is a civil society organization in the Maldives which advocates for the rights of women. Our vision and hope is that one day our society will be a diverse and inclusive society where women and men have equal access to resources, opportunities for development, and have the freedom to make informed choices to live a humane, dignified, productive, and peaceful life. I welcome you all to today's webinar as we join the 16 Days of Activism global campaign to eliminate violence against women and girls. So let me share you a little bit of history. The 16 Days of Activism initiative has its roots that go back in history to 25th November 1960, when three sisters who resisted political violence in their country, the Dominican Republic, were brutally murdered. Today, we remember the courage and sacrifice of the Mirabal sisters to stand up against violence in their society. 25th November was declared the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women by the United Nations in 1999. And since then, women and men around the world unite to raise their voices against violence as we seek a more peaceful society free from the fear and hurt of violence. To discuss the issues of violence against women and girls in our own society, we have with us today two wonderful young artists who have taken the courageous and monumental step to express this very big issue in their creative artwork. Today, we plan to share and discuss the work of three young artists, in fact, who exhibited their work at the national exhibition held in October this year, organized by the Maldivian artists community with the National Art Gallery in Male. And we're very pleased to have a mental health specialist with us to enrich our discussions. Joining us in person are young artists, Aminat Altaf Shaheen and Aminat Zaina Riaz. We have Shuzna Majdi, who is a clinical psychologist with a specialization in trauma. And we are delighted to have the presence of Deputy Head of Mission, Mr. Thorsten Barfred, representing our partner in this activity, the delegation of the European Union to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. A warm welcome to all participants, and thank you so much for giving us your valuable time to engage in this important discussion with Uthema. May I just say a few words in Divehi as well. Uthema Jamiyaki Rajega Angenunge Hagutaka Wakalat ko Angenunge Halatu Denegane Dirasa Kurma Masake Kuramunda Madani Jamiyai. Angenunasha Angen Kudina Kura Ania Hutuma Wakalat Kurma Bainalagwami Kotun Duniege Eki Kankurtaga Miedu Pata Harakatagge Campaignuga Daveri Bumaki Jamiyage Maksad Hasil Kurma Libe Bara Muhimu Fursate. Ekamantaka mi webinar series ga Baverwa Emmeha Parataka Jamiyage Paratum Shukurdan. Adi mi Haraka Hinguma Mali Gotungi Tervedeba Divihirajasha Sri Lanka Kandala Pawa European Union ke delegation Hasan Shukradan. Miadika webinar ki Zuang Pananunge Baveru Himene Harakate Ademi webinar belum gaves Zuanunge Baverum Dibenikamamu Mitkura. The webinar ga Wahakadekuma Hamji Fawani Magandu Gotega Ingrespa. Names Divesa Ingreses Baverina Benum Puraman Danwa. The webinar sign language Nuata Aduamu Mahrum Fawa Mehunge Bahum Genes Kenes devumaki argumenta libe upalang adi niharakata libe itur pudham kamgaris. Before we move on to our discussions, I would like to provide a little bit of housekeeping information. This webinar is being live broadcast on Facebook and Twitter, and we would love for our viewers to send in questions and comments as we continue this discussion, and we will do our best to share your comments and respond to any questions during the webinar. As we begin our discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Thorsten Bagfried, Deputy Head of Mission for the European Union Delegation to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, to share some remarks. Mr. Bagfried, the floor is yours.
Yes, good evening from Colombo. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here. Violence against women and girls is unfortunately a widespread human rights violation that takes place all over the world. So no country is exempted from that. And it's nothing to do with religion or culture. We all face this. It is estimated that 1/3 of all women and girls experience violence at some point in their lifetime. Although the actual numbers may be much higher, as many acts of violence go unreported. More alarmingly, there has been evidence that suggests that violence against women may have increased this year as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The ongoing health crisis has disproportionately affected vulnerable groups, that includes women and children. Obviously, the lockdowns in houses have effects all over the world, and this is something we also observe in Europe. So it's important that we talk about these issues and to find ways for action and to address the root causes of what we are observing. So I'm very pleased that we are able to work together with local partners and stakeholders in the Maldives to bring you first in a series of panel discussions to mark the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. I'm looking really much forward to hearing from our expert panelists over the coming weeks. And let me just say that the European Union is and will always remain very committed to working with partners all over the world to end all forms of violence against women and girls. And let me also thank Uthema for putting this great webinar together. I think this is going to be very interesting. If I may, there is just one critical point, one observation I would like to make, is that the panel, and I'm afraid it might be symptomatic, lacks a bit of gender bias, gender balance, if you see what I mean. Because I feel it should not be up to women and girls alone to speak up against violence. I'm absolutely sure that men care about their mothers, they care about their sisters, they care about their wives, and they care about their daughters. So I think it's crucially important that this raising awareness and action against violence against women and girls is not left up to women and girls only, but that many men join and be active against it. So I wish you fruitful discussions and all the best. Looking forward to hear. Bye-bye. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bagfried, and I think you make a very important point. We do lack gender balance in this panel, and we only have you. So we are grateful to have your presence to balance it out a little bit. And we certainly will keep that in mind in our future webinars as we work together to have these critical discussions about, as you mentioned, a very, very important topic. And it's a huge responsibility that we all have to be inclusive in this discussion and ensure that all kinds of voices are heard in this space. So let me move on to our first artists that I would like to introduce. Ms. Altaf. Altaf is a young student, and Altaf's work, I wonder if we'll be able to see Altaf's work while she gives us a little bit of an introduction of herself. I'll just ask our organizers to show Altaf's work, and maybe also see Altaf. Hi, Altaf. Can you hear us clearly? She's joining from her home.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for inviting me here, and I feel privileged to be a part of this webinar. My name is Aminat Altaf Shaheen, and I'm currently a student studying in Iskandar School. And I have always loved doing art, as far as I remember. This year, my artwork for National Exhibition, United Unveiled Missions, was based on one of the most crucial topics today, discrimination. I tried to highlight the different forms of discrimination in which, in my point of view, are really important. Discrimination due to class, gender, religion, and race. I feel this is really important topic to talk about. I have described this painting as,
go ahead.
In the past years, crimes against women, religious hate crimes, the human population living in absolute poverty, and racially motivated crimes have increased at an alarming rate, with billions of people deprived from basic human rights. It is estimated that approximately 1.5 billion people, 1.5 billion women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual violence in some point of their lives. China holds more than 1 million Muslims in concentration camps where they are subjected to brutal torture. Hundreds of thousands of Muslims from Yemen, Palestine, and Lebanon, and many other countries are suffering from severe humanitarian crises. Black people are subjected to economic inequalities, absence of healthcare, biased education and judicial system, and more. As of today, 2/3 of world population live on less than $10 per day, and every 10th person live in absolute poverty. We have spent almost 6 million years on this planet. Don't you think it's high time to make the world better for all? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing that, Altaf. These are really big issues that you have addressed and you have thought about as you produce this piece of work. It's really, you are only 16, but you have clearly been thinking about this very deeply. And can you please share with us a little bit about the artwork itself, how long you took to produce it, what were you thinking when you were working on this piece?
It took me around 3 months to complete it, and actually what inspired me to do this work was the significant number of cases which have been upcoming in our news. Like every day we are seeing some sexual violence in our community. Every day we are seeing some discrimination due to gender in our community. Every day we are seeing some kind of discrimination throughout the world. And many cases have been reported. So while reading the news, I thought it should be brought to light and shared by many. So in order to give this message, yeah, I have painted this work.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction of your artwork and of yourself. Now I will move on to our next guest, Zaina. Aminat Zaina Riaz. Hi, Zaina. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself a little bit and perhaps a little bit about your artwork as well?
Sure. Thank you for this opportunity at first, because it's a really big thing, and I can convey my message more clearly. I'm Uthema. I'm a 17-year-old self-taught artist, and I usually work around ink, but this was my first painting for unveiling visions. I want to go out of my comfort zone to show the world a message. Through my talent, I knew that it was my responsibility, that if I wanted to make the world a better place, that I had to show it in a more direct and more strong way, which is why I have created this artwork, which includes both art and writing, which means poetry.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about how long it took you to do this work, and also what thoughts were going on in your mind as you were producing this piece of work?
Roughly, I wouldn't say accurately, it took about 2 months, 3 months tops. And what was the reason why I did this artwork was to show that sometimes we are also to blame for this, how the victim is feeling. So this is about what I would want to say through a victim's mind. This is why I wrote the drawing. Like on the drawing, I wrote that this is to the society, which is why the title is Dear Society. This is to show that she doesn't show her true emotions. And the 3 other things at the bottom, the 3 other paintings, show her real emotions, that she's probably going to feel that for the rest of her life. She's never going to get over that because she doesn't have the proper treatment, which is what I want to really show in this whole thing.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to now move on to our next guest, Shazna. Would you please give us a short introduction of you and your work as well, please?
Hi, I'm a licensed psychologist at Tiba Psychology. I'm in various
I think, if I may just stop you, I think we have a slight sound problem. Could we start again, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, that's much better. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Shuzna. I'm a licensed psychologist at Tiba Psychology. I'm trained in various therapeutic modalities, and I provide therapy for teens and adults. And I have a special interest in trauma therapy. And I'm really delighted to be here and to be part of this event. And thank you so much for having me here. Sometimes some people find it really hard to talk about dreadful life events or bad experiences in their life. And even we psychologists use creative modalities to help them better understand their emotions, and it helps us to understand their behavior and emotional difficulties as well. And generally speaking, as well, creative expression is good for overall health and mental well-being as well. Some people use creative expression as an outlet to express their difficult emotions and stress. And when people get the opportunity to freely express without restrictions, it dramatically enhances their mental well-being. So I think creative ways of expression is really good for overall health and mental health.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, I think we are going to share 3 pieces of artwork at this webinar. And one of the participants is not here with us in person, but we will go to that artwork in a little while. But first, I would like to go back to Altaf's work once again, because Altaf's work is looking at the global issues. She has expressed, her concern about the sheer number of people who experience violence. 1.5 billion women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual violence. She has observed in her explanation of her art piece. And we know that in the Maldives, 1 in 3 persons, 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives. And this also agrees with the figure Mr. Bachfeld mentioned about 1/3 of all women and girls experiencing violence globally. So this is why we have to consider this as the shadow pandemic, as we describe in the title of our webinar series. The issue of violence against women and girls is like a shadow pandemic. Of course, in the time of COVID, this issue has increased, as our guest had also pointed out, and the situation was bad before, but now with COVID, the situation has become even worse. And this makes this issue so important to discuss. So coming back to Altaf's artwork, I just wondered if you could explain to us why you chose to depict the person that you have done in this artwork. This refers to global issues, and you have chosen this particular figure. And Altaf, is it possible for you to give us a little bit of background, how you arrived at this particular kind of art? Thank you.
Yeah. In my artwork, I have picturized a woman to indicate the discrimination against women, a woman who is poor to indicate discrimination against caused due to class, a woman who is a Muslim to show the discrimination which is done because of following a particular religion. As we follow Islam, I have picturized a Muslim woman here, and the discrimination caused due to being a woman and being Black. These are the main 4 forms of discrimination we have been experiencing globally, and I thought this should be out there and people need to be more aware about this and the extensiveness of the effects of this type of discrimination. Yes.
That's very deep. You have looked at so many different kinds of discrimination. It's not just one form of discrimination. There's multiple forms of discrimination that you have thought about. The discrimination on the basis of class, on the basis of race, on the basis of gender, and on the basis of economic ability. So multiple forms of discrimination is being expressed through this artwork. And you understand this, and you are just 16. This is what I find extremely interesting in your artwork. When we first looked at the artwork at the exhibition, I didn't think a 16-year-old has done this work and written this text. So I wonder why were you thinking so deeply about this? Is human rights a subject that you have been studying, or global human rights issues?
Yes, I have always looked up to the human rights, and I have participated in the HRCM human rights quiz twice. So the laws and the constitution and those stuff are really familiar with me, and I keen on reading about human rights and such issues.
That's wonderful. Shuzna, I wonder if you have any thoughts on what Altaf has shared already, and also her art piece.
I think Altaf has covered many main discriminations overall, and discrimination is everywhere. It's not a new thing. It's in our community as well. It's in the families as well. It's in our workplaces as well. So it's very common, and I'm really happy that Altaf being so young and she's so motivated to promote awareness regarding discrimination and discriminatory behaviors as well. So I find that artwork really interesting, and I think she really has a good insight of what discrimination is, and this is what I think the younger generation needs to be aware of as well.
Yes, I think you're right. It's really good to know that the kinds of quizzes that the Human Rights Commission is sharing and engaging young people in is educating them about so much, including what is happening in the country, in our country, as well as a whole host of things that are happening, many human rights violations happening elsewhere in the world. And it is in that global context, I think, the issue of violence against women is really positioned, because this is a global pandemic. It has huge implications to the life chances of women and girls, and the quality of life of women and girls, and that has a huge impact on the whole family. And I again refer to Mr. Barford's comment about inclusion. Men care about these issues, so we need more men to be discussing these issues with us. Notably, at this art competition, a lot of these issues were raised. The issue of violence, we noticed, was raised by many artists, in fact. And among them, there are some men too. So hopefully, we may one day be able to have a much larger discussion among the artists community to, share these concerns and these thoughts and the reasons why this sort of artwork is being produced by some of our most young, very young people. Now, if we move to Zaina's, I was thinking the title of Zaina's artwork is particularly interesting, given the kind of content she is depicting in her artwork. I know you have referred to the title, Dear Society, and why, but could you tell us a little bit more, Zaina, about why you felt that was the most appropriate title for this artwork?
Sorry, that wasn't clear. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Is the sound still?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. I was asking, could you give us a little bit of insight about why you felt the title of your artwork, Dear Society, is the most appropriate title for the artwork you have depicted? There's so much, so much violence in this artwork. It is about rape. So,
I chose to write Dear Society because I wanted it to be from the view of the victim. That I wanted to say that this is how is speaking to the society. That even if there are people who are trying to stop this, there are some things that are not really helping. Example, the fact that I just drew on the first picture, there's a woman that's not showing much of an emotion. I'm showing that she is unable to really give out her true emotions due to the way that the society treats her. Example, as soon as she says something like, "Oh, I have gone through such a trauma," they ask her whether she was wearing appropriate clothes. Who was she with? Was she out at night alone? Those are not the questions that we're supposed to ask because that is not relevant. We are supposed to feel safe no matter what we're wearing, where we are, and who we're with. Because rape and violence is not something that's supposed to happen, and it's not supposed to be something that's normal. That's why I chose Dear Society, because we need to show this message out to the society, because society is us, you, me, and everyone around us.
this is so true. This is so true. You have written inside the artwork, you have written, you have the luxury of forgetting. I lived that world. I will live it. That I live that word, I will live it. So everything else is a pretense and it's alien to my own skin. I am only judged. What I wore, where I was, who I am, mattered little in the face of this attack, if you like. And yet you blame me. It is my fault and mine alone for being raped. So these are very, very powerful and very, very insightful ways of expressing this crime, because rape is a crime against women and girls and men too sometimes, and boys, and it is a crime against society effectively, because as you say, I will live it. You have the luxury of forgetting, I don't. Shazna, I wonder if you have any questions on this particular aspect of, just how powerful this is.
I think the title itself gives a strong message to the society, and I really like the title and the artwork as well. The society, like abuse, such as abuse and crime, is really devastating, and the person who experiences abuse will be going through a lot of emotional difficulties. But the society wants this person to portray certain behaviors, to act in a certain way, like as if nothing has happened. And then on top of that, and this person gets blamed for, like Zaina says, what she was wearing, what she was doing, or all those sort of things. But the reality is, this person will be trapped in this psychological dilemma, and the long-term psychological impact that this person going through is like unspeakable. The trauma and everything else. So it's the picture is really like it gives out the message out loud. And Zena, I want to ask you this question. what went through your mind when you were painting the picture?
Zaina, were you
Sorry?
able to hear?
Yeah, I
Did
didn't hear
you?
that. No.
I think Zaina did not hear your question, Shuzna.
Yeah, Zaina,
Yeah, I did not hear.
yeah, what my question is, what went through your mind when you were painting this picture? Like, why do you want to give a strong message to the society?
Well, I'm not even supposed to be giving such a message to the society, but it's come to a point that it's necessary for such a young person like me and Altaf even to speak about such a thing because it's become such a normal thing that you can go out and you can get raped. But that's so wrong in so many levels, which some people don't understand and some people don't feel, because it's just something that happens in the world now. So with my talent, I felt like it was my responsibility that in any way that I can to share this message and try to bring a stop to this, because I myself can or cannot be like one of the days I could be a victim myself, and I don't want that for myself nor my family. And I have a sister, I have a mother, and I have tons of female cousins, which I know that anything could happen to, but which I don't really want, to happen to this. So I want to convey this message to try and stop this and support trying to stop this abuse, to bring knowledge to people around the world.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very powerful, Zaina. And I think we all want a safer and more peaceful society. And I hope your efforts to bring this message to us, to the whole of society, is going to be heard. I think the exhibition itself was very successful, as far as I'm aware. And there were so many young artists like yourself who presented their work for the first time, and there were extremely powerful messages given to society. And this, dear society, I also believe and agree with you, must listen to you. Now, I think it might be a good point to move on to the next artwork that we have. Unfortunately, the artist who produced this work was unable to join us, but we are very happy to share this artwork so that we can have a discussion around the issues this piece of work represents. This is the artistic creation of Samahat Dawood, whose work also gives a very important message as we discuss the issue of violence against women and girls. Now, we have looked at Altaf's work, which embodies the multiple dimensions of violence that happens based on gender, race, class, poverty, economic status, etc. In a similar way, Samahat's work is also depicting a kind of violence. And this work she has entitled Frowned Upon by the Society. Again, this piece of work is about rejection. And this is a form of rejection, form of violence that many of us experience. And rejection is something extremely marginalizing and debilitating to many. Now, Samahat to describe this artwork. These are her words, and I quote, "My child and I lay in the hands of a cruel predator, in his clutches, suffering day in and day out, with a light so dim, a shadow of darkness surrounding. Like desert dandelions, surviving through harshest of weathers, I am surviving for my daughter. Under the burning sun, collecting every drop of rain, oh so red, for her. All we asked for was love and care, for our daughter to bloom. Can we escape now? Can this all be over now? If not fatherly love, could he end the torture? If not him, would you take him down and help us free?" So she is concerned about the way somebody is clearly being frowned upon by other people in society. Now, as she shared this work with us, I thought it will be very helpful if the other artists in our group could have a discussion around this piece of work by your peer. And I hope Shuzna can shed some light on what this image also depicts. Who would like to comment on this first? Alta? Zaina? Would you like to go first, Alta? And can we also have the artwork visible, if possible, so that Alta can share her comments? Is there a sound problem? Alta, can you hear us? We might be having a sound problem. Zainab, can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay, so while that is being fixed, perhaps you can go first. Thank you.
Yes, the painting is about this small girl and her mother, as I can see. There's a hand holding them both. In my view, the way I see it, I feel like that hand shows protection. But also it could show that those two, innocent girl and woman, is being handled by some man, which is also wrong. So I think that she's more focusing on that part, that even though that they feel safe in a household or something, this is in my way I'm saying, that even if they are in a household that they feel safe in, men can come out as a predator to them, which is why that the child is holding on to the mother for protection. That is why the hand is there, as if that person's being handled, controlled by them, that is where they will belong, in the hands of men. Is my view on this painting.
Thank you for sharing that. Shuzna, do you have some thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, I think this part of the picture, there's darkness in it as well. So I think the darkness represents the predator or the perpetrator. And like Zena says, the hand, it could mean the need for protection and the need for care and protection. And mother is being very protective about for the girl, for the younger child. It could mean that the child is subjected to violence in regards to so mother is being kind of like overprotective for the child. So that's how I see the picture. And then there's some, I don't really see the picture now. Yeah.
We can see it now. Is it possible to zoom in a little bit? I'm not sure if it's possible, but you could request.
I think there is fear in the child as well. When the child is holding on to the mother, the face shows the expression of fear and all that. But I'm really interested in the white part that surrounds the mother and the child. Maybe the white represents hope and love, hope and happiness. The need for hope, love and something like that.
Yeah, thank you for those thoughts. Yes, I think yes, it's like there is light. She is hopeful for her child. She's perhaps protecting her child, like you say, and that is her hope, that she has the strength to protect her child, perhaps. And that strength is very important, especially, isn't it, in these sorts of moments of rejection and marginalization. But it is frowned upon by the society and putting a family in that position. How often do you find this issue in our context, in our society, Shuzna, in your work?
Some people, when they are subjected to abuse, neglect, and violence, some kids even, they don't even know that they have been subjected to such violence and abuse and neglect until they grow up. So, from my experience, some of the clients, when they come to see me, they express their concerns, and then when I explore their stories, I understand that they really don't have any clue that they have been subjected to violence. So that is something really concerning as well. And in some families, there is this intergenerational abuse and violence as well. So the violence runs in families. So if the mother or if the parent is subjected to violence, and then their kids get the same treatment as well. And in a family like that, even the extended family, they also have no clue that something wrong is going on in the family. So this is something really concerning as well. Unless those people get educated or some form of awareness is there for them, then only they will understand about the violence and the neglect as well. And people don't really talk about violence and abuse as well. And when people become silent about their abusive treatment, part of their brain gets shut down. Like, it's really hard for them to come out of the trauma. It's really hard for them to process the difficult situation they have been, or the difficult treatment they received from whoever was treating them badly. So the healing process gets blocked. So this is something that I have noticed from my clients who have experienced severe trauma or adverse life circumstances. And while some people are always in this life mode, some people go into this really dark place where they are either dissociated or frozen in place, or frozen in their life, where they are unable to move forward or develop their full potential and fully experience life or fully enjoy life. So that is something. And during therapy, like, a lot of work need to be done to help them improve their mental health status and to help them come up with their therapeutic.
Thank you for those insights. It's very interesting to hear just how complex this sort of violence, the all the things that someone has to go through as a result of this sort of rejection, which in fact is a kind of violence, the neglect, having to live in fear, having to go around thinking that someone is always blaming them for their situation. So this concept of being frowned upon by everyone, they've got no friends, effectively. So that is kind of what perhaps that artwork is trying to depict. I wonder if Altaf is able to comment on this now. Is the sound fixed? Altaf, can you hear us?
Yes, yeah.
Great.
I also completely agree with Zaina on this. The hand might be for protection, but I strongly think it's a predatory hand, and the mother is protecting the child, and there's hope. But still, the society is blaming them for their situation, and that's why they are thrown in on the society. That's what I believe. It's shown on the artwork.
Thank you. Yes, I think we are pretty much all in agreement on the it's a bit different, the different readings. I think some of us feel that maybe there is hope. She's fighting back, she's dealing with it. But the thing is, when it comes to violence, it's impossible to deal with it by yourself. Is that right, Shuzna? Because the whole society has a role to play to prevent, to stop this, and where it happens, to provide support services.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
I was just saying that, when someone is shunned by society, as depicted in this artwork, that is a very difficult place for anyone to be in, and for them to be able to help themselves is very limited when everybody around them is blaming them for their situation. So my point is, there has to be support services available, but first of all, society must stop this behavior or stop these sort of victim blaming situations, and there should be services available for them, first to prevent and then protect, and also where something goes wrong, for them to overcome that trauma.
First of all, I strongly believe that society needs to be aware of the kind of violence that we go through, the kind of violence that women and children go through as well. Sometimes the violence is in the form of subtle, like it's not direct violence or direct abuse, it's indirect as well. Some form of neglect and rejection is indirect in the society, or we need to understand the kind of violence that people go through and the psychological impact of that violence as well. There is this short-term impact as well, that self-blaming, like you said, and the society blames the victim as well, or victims as well, and at the same time the victim starts to blame themselves too, because when people start to point fingers, like at one point even the victims start to question about their own behavior and their own actions as well. So there is blame, self-blame, and self-hatred as well. And when serious violence, when people experience severe violence, it actually affects a victim's own self-identity and purpose in life as well. So there has to be, I strongly believe that there has to be, it's our play. People need to come and help those people as well. There needs to be a system to help those people in need of those services as well. Psychological services are very important, I believe, and we need to have a structure as well. And of course, some people can afford a psychological service because it's expensive. Some people can afford, and there are a huge majority of people who cannot really afford such services. And when it comes to freely available services, the waiting list is quite long, and they have to wait for a long time to get such help as well. So I think more services needs to be there as well, and more NGOs with who can provide psychological services needs to come into place as well.
I agree with you. And I think we have a situation where there are, several support services trying to establish themselves and to widen the scope of their work and so on. But this is a very difficult task, especially currently in the COVID crisis that we have, where all services are very stretched, especially healthcare services, and the stresses on the system is immense. So I can understand that there will be huge challenges to providing services to survivors of all forms of violence. But I believe that society needs to address these collectively for prevention, for protection of the vulnerable, and to provide established services so that that is also available to survivors who are trying to overcome their trauma. You mentioned that your specialized interest is trauma. So I just have a question for you, Shuzna. In terms of the types of trauma, what would you say now? Poverty will be traumatic. That is also because deprivation is trauma. Not knowing whether you will have a roof over your head tomorrow is traumatic. So the types of violence that happens because of the situation you happen to be in, there's so many types of violence, and with it, that is why we have laws that describe, there are many types of violence, including economic violence, where someone does not provide for their family. Or deliberately withholds financial assistance to the family. So these are all violent. This is all violence. So in terms of the kind of trauma that you come across as a result of violence, what would you say is the most prevalent, most common in that context?
Most common is sexual violence towards women and children, mostly towards children, younger children. Surprisingly, there are men or younger boys who get violated as well sexually, and it affects their life, and it affects them really in a really bad way, like the long-lasting effect of those disturbing those it stays with them for a long time, like unless they get a proper treatment like therapy or combination of treatment like medication and therapy. Even with that as well, the healing journey can be really hard. So I found that sexual violence is most common.
And I think the work that Zena has presented, which is about, one of the most horrendous types of violence, which is rape and sexual violence to children, is also indescribably, horrible crimes. And these experiences with a lot of survivors of such violence. And I think as a society, we need to understand that it is because of the, I found it very hard to hear, when Zena was saying that this sort of crime has become normal, and normal is such is a word that we don't want to put against something like this, as a society. I don't think that would be right. And that thought brings me to the message that Samahat has shared when she shared her artwork with us. And let me read that message also to share with you. And I quote, and her message is in Divehi, so I will read this. She says, Demaperieke de terevias, Aila terevias, Mamaya darifula de meduganuat, Bapaya darifula de meduga kamgavina maves, Edemetuga nafsani, Jismani, Adi jinsi anyatake devekang ige nama, Ekame mutuang kuraven huri, Hommekame kurmaki, Muli mujtamauge zimma ekang. Avatteriyakas, Durtatimage mihakas, Mudanna mihaka bias, Ezimma nagage nuni, Nikantata maden kurevene. Mia deterega evres commenting eche, evres panelist ege evohurtu.
From my work, I have noticed that when people go through trauma or violence, let's say sexual violence, sexual abuse, normally, usually they don't only go through sexual violence per se. It is accompanied by so many other type of violence, like emotional abuse or other form of abuse. It's not just sexual violence or sexual abuse. Emotional abuse, physical abuse. A complex trauma. So it's not sexually mihakan undagu kurairuga hamekani undagu kollafaka huttalani kiyepesno mege teriyak ehin kantapeseba. It's really very complicated. It's really a difficult thing to treat as well when there is a complex issues, when there is complex or network of problems.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it, a network of problems. Ege terega varagina enege vashagen vahisabga enege amilla nafsani sikhi me trauma vashagen va tuene gotenne halata me huriha eche eba ega shamil ve kannege miga samahat shakof ane me shakof baskoluga minneni Avatteriyakas Durtatimage mihakas Mudanna mihaka bias ezimma nagage nuni mikanta maden nukuravene. Envima miga myoti emmenge zimma oy bahaka oy kang. And mive hama Zena ves hama Zenage mi kurahumuge title ga hama society day message evima Purina zuan lumbes mi zuan panna lumbes itipagu khanege emme mi geba masake kuranchi heye. Am I right?
Programming responsibility funding awareness raise kurung and abuse purihavatri abuse was put to a kurung and society was about voice out kuranje he abuse nuami hun nuni abuse be fatibe mi hum was about victims se annange bache he hama kuriyang annange bache he pas bunne bache he and me violence huttuwa me let's say victims is forward and they have to voice out as well about the abuse. Me agar me work me agar that's what me is chaki and when victims start to voice out bunaving oi gota nge hama kure homo vias ade dance akumvias noni am music akumvias a voice out kurevijje yamo creatively express kurevijje kamavanyamum eke sababum ek emotional brain ga inna waki parting a lit up way and that is where the healing starts healing is fitting sabki kumavis level like a voice out kurevijje kamavanyamum it becomes the healing process start wrong, it becomes the ignition. Voice out as a society, we need to help the survivors to voice out as well. Promote kuram maseke kurma kives vara muhimma kame.
What would you say to the artist community? They have done a great job doing what they have done. You know, they are so young, and yet they have inspired us to use their work in this way to have this discussion, this open discussion, this open conversation. We hear Zena's message, Samahat's message, Altaf's message, and the rest of the artists' messages on the issue of violence against women and girls and men and boys. The extent of violence in our society is quite shocking, and I think you are right. We all have a responsibility. But perhaps, would you say that one of the first things we need to do is to openly talk about this? And I certainly think this is so. But you know, I know this is not the most engaging of subjects. We did request our viewers to share comments and questions, and we feel that we have not received many comments or questions or thoughts. So perhaps that is an indication of a reluctance to engage on a subject of this gravity to the whole society. Each one of us has a responsibility. You know, the young people are saying so. The young people are expressing themselves and saying this is a problem in our society. Is open discussion about this a problem? Shuzna.
I think if any sort of violence or if there is any kind of abuse that is going on around the society, if some lower level of it's really important to voice it out so that the person, the survivor, let's say, would get the proper help, much needed help. When a person goes through trauma or traumatic experience, it affects it affects the emotional brain. It affects the whole personality as well. It changes the brain structure as well. Personality, by the way the person sees the world, the person views themselves, it all changes. Holistically, help it will be very hard for this person to come out of that trauma and to heal. It's important to voice it out as well. It's important to let others know that they need help. And society is a society in suga begging and this violence if this kind of violence it's really really bad for the society, it's not good for the society. And holistically, asuga health benum va iru huriha kola kumis health depends ne huriha level like health depends ne amilla mehayang healing process tereng asuga understanding innan ne ama me spiritual healing na kabse batan je let's say misal kan health depends huriha kola ko family tereng yanna help, society tereng yanna support ama namad cooking kuran jehe dini khantatta cooking spiritually emi had been jehe power bar the begin healing about go through kuran jehe turun professional health libma ke bara muhim kame then professionally liben jehe we have gotun health libeni astuga difficulty in ule kan ehme hunna bes ingiken ehme voice out kurma ke bara muhim kame.
Okay. So, so that means that our young artists are really trying to open this space for these sorts of conversations to help survivors of violence to express. We have been talking quite a bit, so I'd like to hear any thoughts that Altaf and Zaina have got, relating to the conversation we were just having. Do you want to share any thoughts, Zaina, Altaf? Should this conversation continue? Should this be heard louder everywhere?
In my opinion, or like how I see it sometimes, I feel like if the victim talks about it, she is forever titled as a victim, as a person who has been raped, which also stops them from talking about it. Because they don't want that title. They'd rather keep it inside, suffer alone, in a corner of the room without telling other people. Also the fact that if they open up, their families are going to get really affected by it. They'll probably think that they did something wrong, and then they'll start taking way too much care for her, giving less freedom because, of course, they won't trust anymore. And that could result in a lot of issues, family issues, self-confidence and all that. Which is why I think that sometimes opening up is not always the way that they can go with this whole thing. So that's also an issue with this entire problem, in my opinion.
I think you make a very important point there. It really is a very important point. And especially with sexual violence, any kind of violence, nobody wants, it's very hard to share that, I'm sure. Because of the stigmatization, because of, like you say, there's a, victim blaming. It's what, the question is around, why were you there? Why did you go there at that time of the night? Why were you wearing what you were wearing? So these questions do not address the problem. These questions actually create another problem. That's what you are suggesting, right? And that has the effect of stopping people from sharing their trauma, which again creates more problems. And I think you really make a very good point there. Thank you for sharing that, Zaina. Alta?
අලුගොඩ දෙකේ ගොතක මේ අලුගොඩ දිරෝලේ මුස්තමයකි රක්කාතේරි අමා මුස්තමක හදම් බේනුවානම කොම්මೆ ෆරුදෙවිස් එකමට්ටක මස්සක කුරන්චේ අලුගොඩ මේ බෙදෙහෙ අනියා ලිබේ ෆරාතක බස් අලුගොඩ මේ බෙදෙහෙ එෆරාතක හිපරුදේ අලුගොඩ මේ බෙදෙහෙ මේ මුස්තමයකි රක්කාතේරි මුස්තමයක හදම් බේනුවා බෙක්ක එහෙ මිහුනස්සක් ඒකුගා මස්සක කොග්ගෙන් අලුගොඩ මෙන්න අමා රක්කාතේරි මුස්තමයක වාසදෙවෙන් මේ අලුගොඩ පුනද
Barbara Shukriya, Alta. Very wise words, I think, and very, very important words, and a very, very important message to everybody. As we reach the, we are kind of coming to an end of our session. So we haven't had very much engagement from our viewers. So we will continue the conversation. Hopefully, the next webinar we have planned will focus on some of the other issues relating to the big issue of violence in our society. Before we conclude, I'd like to ask each of the panelists, each of the participants, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with the viewing public? Anyone can go first. Okay, let me choose someone then. Zainab, you go first.
Well, this was discussed before as well. So I was thinking that we do need more support, group support, like more support, more therapy people, and also the fact that sometimes no one has enough cash for therapy. Therapy is actually quite expensive some places. Some places they don't have access to that. So I think that there needs to be more support, there needs to be more awareness about all this, and that the help needs to increase so that people, the victims, the people who go through all this can reach out easily without having to overthink it, worry about cash and all that. So I think it needs to be free or like at least small sum of amount and more help, because I think cash is not the problem here. That we don't need cash to help somebody. We can always do it for free, right? So I think that's the most important thing here.
Yes, I think kindness can be very freely given. We don't need cash for that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you. Alta?
I feel like the main problem is not how to deal with the problems. The problem is, the thing we need to think about is how to avoid these situations so that people do not have to go through those problems and suffer. And I really appreciate we are having this webinar right now, and hopefully people will be more aware about this and people are viewing this. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I really hope we have the opportunity to have more conversations with you and other young people like you who are so socially conscious, and you have this ability to inspire us to raise these issues in a public forum like this. And I thank you both for the wonderful work that you have done, and for coming here and sharing your thoughts with us, and for sharing your artwork with us as well. Shuzna. And finally, to you.
Yeah, what I want to say is the psychological impact of advanced life experiences. Trauma it's very real and it's debilitating as well. It prevents people from reaching to their full potential and find meaning in life and enjoy life to the fullest. So, furtamakamaka, don't stay silence. Kami vejjayamong abusive vejjayamong treatment vejjayamong voice it out, talk about it. Furutama amila self-obvious admit kollashe that you have been hurt. Something bad has happened to you. Admit kura hisabung fechigem west. There will be changes in your brain structure. Brain changes taking ade. Brain activities changes taking ade. So furutama healing fettem west ei furutama step kama balashe. Amillevis admit ko acknowledge kollashe. Something has happened to you. Something really bad has happened to you. So furthermore step nagashe amilem acknowledge kolla for share it with someone. Voice it out. Okay, that's my.
Thank you. And I think we have national level campaigns to break the silence on violence against women and girls. And I think it extends to anyone who suffers violence. This is a very big topic about a very big issue. And once again, it's been a real privilege to have all of you here with us to share your thoughts on this very important topic on this very important day for all of us. During the 16 days of activism, we hope to have 2 more webinars, and we will share that information on our social media platforms. But for this evening, I would like to conclude this event by making a few comments about all the people who have made this possible. We have now reached the end of this webinar, and I'd like to thank everyone who has tuned in to watch this discussion and those who have responded with comments and questions, hopefully at some point even later on, and those who will do so in the future. And I hope we will hear more from viewers about their thoughts on this issue, this national issue, at their local levels and also at the national level of their understanding of the issue. So on behalf of Uthema, I want to thank our young artists for sharing their artwork with us, their thoughts and their experiences in their creative work. A very big thank you to Shuzna for providing these rich insights into the importance of art for mental health, well-being, and dealing with trauma, and the fact that the use of art, whether it be through painting or dancing or music, how important it is for the healing process for those who have survived violence. And I hope we will have conversations around these topics so that we have greater understanding, kinder society to the plight of those affected by violence in their lives, so that those who are already survivors of violence do not have to survive more violence from anyone else, especially the wider society. Lastly, I would like to thank our partner in this webinar series, the delegation of the European Union to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The assistance and support of our partners nationally and internationally are really important for us to do our work to realize our aspirations for a just and peaceful society for women, girls, and families. And I thank Mr. Bargfeld for being with us and for sharing his thoughts and for making the time from his busy schedule to share some time with us during this webinar. I also want to thank the National Art Gallery and the artist community for helping us reach out to artists and connect with them. I would also like to thank the parents of Zena and Alta for trusting us to have you with us here today. I hope this has been a good experience for both of you. And once again, thank you so much, Shuzna, for being here to support us through this conversation. Before I close, I'd like to remind that our next webinar is planned for the 3rd of December as we mark the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We look forward to that conversation and hope you will be able to join us then. And we thank you once again for taking the time to spend with us this evening. Thank you. Wa alaikum assalam.